Hi guys, welcome back to the shop. Hey, today I'm going to get on building a tool that I'm going to need to split the crankshaft on the HS1 Twin 90 Yamaha. These crankshafts that Yamaha used back then, if I remember right, there were 3 different sizes. And I can't remember exactly. I think the 90, the 100, the 125 were all basically the same. So it used a tool. Then you had the 180 and the 200, and it used a tool. And then you had the 250 and the 350, and it used a certain tool. So I believe back in the day there were 3 different sizes of these tools that Yamaha gave to their dealers. And you know, these cranks are pretty simple in the fact that this tool that I'm going to build is used to push the 2 halves, or 2 cranks basically, apart. And they're designed so that when you put them back together, you can't screw it up. You just make sure it's 90 degrees apart on your pins, your rods, and you press them back together. Once you press them apart, then you treat them just like you do a single cylinder crankshaft. You split them just like you do the AT1s, the CT1s, the 250 DTs, whatever. You treat them the same, only you do 2 of them. And then when you're done with them, then you press them back together. They're splined so that you just really can't mess it up. Anyhow, that's what this tool is about. It's been years, and I'm not sure, I can't picture them in my mind. I've got a picture in a book, and that's how I'm going to build these. And if I get to that point and it doesn't work, then, well, it just doesn't work and I'm back to the drawing board. But this is what I'm going to do. I'm getting prepared for that because we are going to get into that, and I'm more than sure that that is the problem, and I'm going to have to split it. I've got another crankshaft that is for a 90, and I'm going to use it to kind of put this tool together. Of course, it's not going to work for the other 2 sizes, so if I ever get to where I need to do that, I'll have to build another size or 2 sizes if I happen to get into that. But I just don't do that many twins, and I never did. Twin cylinders, unless they're abused, the cylinders, the crankshafts, everything about them last longer. And I don't know whether it's because they're balanced better, they're more used on street bikes, I don't know. But you just don't have the maintenance on the twins and the triples, and that much. And I have a feeling it's due to several things, and that's the fact that most of them are on street bikes. They don't see the dirt and the dust, and they're balanced better. So anyhow, enough of that. Let me get you overhead. We'll take a peek in the book, and then we'll kind of discuss what we're going to do. Okay, this is the HS1 book, and first of all, you can kind of see here in this picture how everything is put together. And if you look on this piece here and on this piece, see, this would be the let's see, this is the magneto side here. So you can see a spline in this half. Otherwise, it doesn't have a stub sticking out on it like it does here. The stub is on the other side, and you can see that it's splined. So what we need to do is we need to build this tool, and it's going to go on to the crankshaft, and you're eventually going to get two of them on there, and you're going to have these two bolts that screw into one side and screw against the other side, which in effect is just going to push them apart, and it's going to push the splined portion apart. And you can see in this figure here where it's separated, you've got the aluminum Liabeth seal area here. It's all in, you know, it comes apart. You guys see the spline here, and this side here is spline, and here's the aluminum portion that you're pressing all this out of. Now let me just, and like I say, once you're done, you treat it just like you do a regular crankshaft, a one-cylinder crankshaft. Let me get this is a spare crank that I've had for a little while. This is the aluminum portion here, where the Liabeth seal is. It's a little different than a conventional seal. Some of them are made of aluminum, some of them are made of rubber, some of them, you know, the whole idea is to provide a hard way for oil to get through. You're gonna have several little rings or whatever, and I can't remember what's in this one. We'll just have to look. But that's what we need to do, is we just need to put a tool on this side and a tool on this side, and then spread them apart and pop it apart. You know, it's just not going to come apart, and you want to do this in a way that you're not going to cause damage to it. You can see that there's very little room right in here, so you're going to have a hard time trying to get a bearing splitter in there or something like that. So we're just going to build a dedicated tool, just like Yamaha provided to their dealerships. So that's where we're at. So let's start cutting some material and trying to mock up what we're going to do here. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is we've got about 2.993. We don't want that completely tight, and you know, the whole idea is you're going to clamp this tool down, and I think that's enough. And I can't remember, and the pictures I've got are not showing that, but you know, a 30 thousandths higher ledge right here, just to drop into this area to kind of lock it in, even though you're clamping around this. That's my plan. So we're going to go to that, which would be 30 thousandths bigger than this reading. We'll cut through that, and once we've got that ledge established, then we'll cut this portion of the tool down, and it actually only goes on here. Goes on this one and on this one. And once we've got that done, then we've got to cut out a little spot for this bigger aluminum part, so we're not touching it. So let's get started on that. We're gonna drill it first, or actually I think I've got a rota bit that I'm going to start 1.5 inches just to get a hole established in 3/4 inch flat bar. that I picked up at my local dealer or local steel supplier, and it's I'm going to make it 6 inches wide, 5 inches thick, and of course it is 3/4 of an inch thick. So that's the material I'm going to use. I'll center up, drill through with a rotobit, and then start with a I'm going to start with a smaller boring bar to get it going, and then once I get it to close to 2 inch, then I can go ahead and get into it with the boring bar I use, the really rigid one I use to bore cylinders with. 2 inches is about the lowest or smallest I can go with that. And you can see we've got to go to almost 3 inches. So it's kind of a long process, and the metal is pretty tough, so it's going to be slow. Anyhow, we've basically got 3 dimensions. We've got this dimension, we've got the dimension for going down into the groove here, and then we've got this dimension. Putting an 1.5 inch hole in it. That's the biggest I can go. And then we'll use the boring head to finish it up. And I can only go 1/2 inch deep with it, so I've got to turn it over. No, mill scale's pretty hard. That's it. It's kind of slow go using this smaller boring head, or boring bar rather. As soon as I get big enough where I can get the bigger one in, I'll be able to take a little bit more. But we're only going to a little under 3 inches. Getting real close. I'm going to put about a 30,000 sledge about midway in between, and that's where it'll fit down over the crankshaft and kind of give it a stop. And then I'll go ahead and bore that'll be bored to about 2.965, and then I'll go ahead and finish boring to 2.995. And that should give us the circumference of the kind of an estimate or average of the crankshaft halves. And then I'll flip them over and I'll bore the outside so that it will go over the center section that's a little bit bigger. Okay guys, we've got our hole and our recess on the back here for the aluminum portion of that. And what I'm going to do now is go over to the hacksaw and I'm going to cut a square out of each corner, and that's where the bolt is going to go to tighten everything up. And once that's done, then we'll split it right down the middle. Well, first, before we do that, we'll drill it. Drill from here to here. And once we've got that, our holes in place for the bolts, then we're going to cut it right here, and that will give us our clamp. So it's quite a bit of time going to be spent with all the cutting now. So let me get to that. drill through here, and that's where our bolt will clamp on both sides, and then we'll split it right here. Okay, this isn't real critical. You just want to be able to get the head of the bolt down in here. So I'm just basically trying to center it, and I'm not going to use a bunch of equipment to do it. I'm just doing my eyeball. So let's see here. My belts are squeaky until it gets warmed up. Okay, I'm going to step that a little bit. Not going to go straight to a 1/2 inch, but I guess you could if you wanted to. Okay, so we'll move on to the next one. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and split this, and I think that this is probably going to want to pull together when I get to there, so I'm going to use a little wedge here after I get through to hold that open. And if we need to, you know, this is cut for the exact size of the crankshaft within, 10 thousandths. So if we need more, then we can go over to the sander and just take off a little bit more. But at this point, we're just going to go ahead and split this. Goes through where that hole is pretty easy. See if I can get my wedge in there now. Okay. There we go. And it did. It's still in there, but probably gonna have to put it over here now. There we go. So now I'll just go ahead and cut the other side. Okay, guys, here we go. I've got these put together, and I took them over and sanded them on the sander just a little bit to straighten it up and give me a little extra space in there to clamp. And I've kind of noticed an issue, and I'm going to go ahead and put these together so you can see. I know I'm going to have somebody ask me why I've got a 1 here and a 1-2 here. I don't know why, but I stamped all of these 1, and that I need both of these, so I need to show that one of them is different than the other. So I just put a 2 on this one. So it's not a big deal. It's just a boo-boo I did, and that's what I did to fix it. One of them, I've still got to drill 2 opposing holes, and the reason I'm not doing it yet is I've got to, I had to order a couple of bolts. I wanted 2 3.5 inch 20, half-inch 20 bolts with threads all the way up. And I wanted them hard. I wanted at least a grade 5. I was able to find grade 8. And not that I need them for the threads or anything, because, you know, this is just mild steel. But the bolts are going to push against one side. And the harder it is, yeah, if you used it a bunch, you'd probably kind of tear into these. But you just want it hard so that it's not going to mushroom on the end, and it will spin easily on the metal. So, you know, I'm gonna drill and tap one side for the bolts to go through, and then this side will be the push. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put this on and kind of clamp it up so you can see what we're going to do. and then I'll show you the problem I've got, so I've got to go back and fix that. So it shouldn't really matter which side, but see, here's the lip that I made that's about 30 thousandths. It sticks down 30 thousandths more than the clamp area. And then this back here is for the aluminum portion. And that's my problem, actually. I didn't make this big enough because I was running out of room with my 2.5-inch boring bar, and I saw that this was going to clear, but it's not going to clear enough. So I've got to come and make this just a little bit bigger. And I'm not sure how I'm going to do that yet, but we'll figure it out. Anyhow, this was my plan, to put this down in between here. I'm going to put this one on back here first so you can kind of see. Okay, so that fits right down into the groove there. You know, it's more of an angle. There's not really much space for this to go in. It's just going into this kind of angle space that they put on the edge of the crankshaft. All right, so we just clamp the other one together, and it should go. You know, since we drilled all these before we cut it, we know everything's lined up for each pair, as long as we keep our numbers to the front. So the whole idea is to clamp that. And I used National Fine, which is the 20 instead of the 13 thread, because it gives you slower push, basically for these more than this. But it does here too. It allows you to take up this gap slower. So that's why I used a fine thread. And then this other one. And I went along here and filed all my edges on both of these, you know, filed all the edges to make them, to soften those edges so they don't cause cuts and whatnot. You know, it's just good practice to do that. And I like to have that up. And again, we just put our numbers on the same side. Got a lot of moving parts here. You know, I'm sure there's some other way to do this, but this is what I've done back when I had the tools, or had the tools available, and that's what I'm going to do now. But anyhow, you can see here where this here is not going to, we need a little more space there. When I start clamping these down, I think that you're going to find that this stops. Let me just do it, and then we'll know. And you're going to tighten these down slowly. Well, that one's still good. But you want these tight. You don't want them sliding or anything. So, okay, we're getting close. we're still good. We might just luck out. But I think I'm going to go in there and try to open that up just a little bit. Anyhow, that's how it's going to be. And then, like I say, we're going to tap. Let's just say we're tapping this side for the threads, and as the bolts come through, it's going to push against this side. So as we tighten it up, then it's going to push these two halves apart and leave this, you've got two bearings in here and the labyrinth seal, however they say that. So that's where we're going with this. It's a lot of work to do something like this, but it's also fun. So it's just part of the deal. And if people have wondered how in the world you do this, this is how it's done. And so my next task is to get my bolts in. Should be here probably next week sometime, and I can tap or drill tap two bolt holes here opposing, thread them in half 20, and then the other side it'll just be pushing against it. Okay, I've got my 3-inch boring head in here. I'm going to go ahead and open this one measurement up just a little bit, just to make sure I've got clearance so it doesn't tighten up on the bearing holder part, the aluminum part of the crankshaft. So let's get this thing going here. Boy, those belts are squeaky. I'm just going to bring it down slowly here. I think I've got it lined up. It's not a critical measurement anyway. Of course, it's not going to be, it's not cylindrical anymore because they're clamped together, and we cut that piece out of the middle. Okay, that's down. I'll have to go ahead and adjust it for another cut. Okay, that should be enough, I think. So let me get the other one in here and get it done too. Okay. That should clean those up. Okay, I'm just going to step this up to 29/64, which is the tap size for 1/2 inch 20. Okay, we'll just start this and then do it by hand. And get our tap follower in there. Okay. Put a little And these are, let's see, that's going to fit that way. I'm sure I got too long of bolts, but I'd rather have too long than not long enough. Okay, this is, like I say, we cut this out a little extra because we just don't want it touching here. And you can see on this one that we've got plenty of room in there. You know, all the work is being done by this piece here and this very small little lip there that's going to go into this area right here. I think you can see how it goes in there now. And then this one, it's going to go just that way too. Let me get that turned around. Yeah, I just wanted the nuts on both sides, on the same side. So now we do. And you just make sure your rods are clear. And then these are just going to screw in. They'll just screw into the other side there. And what the book tells you to do is to do that in increments, like half turn increments. That one's kind of tight. All right, I need a little more oil. But that's how it's gonna push it. We'll tighten these up, of course. But before I try this, I've got to measure up the crank and get all the specs before I do anything. It just, yeah, I think maybe I'll run a tap through this one again. It's just a little bit tight. Maybe it's got a burr in it or something. There may be a little burr on the bolt, I don't know. Yeah, it's not bad, just gets a little tight there. Huh. I can still get it with my finger, but it's, yeah, I'll just run a tap through it again. But anyhow, that is our crankshaft separating tool. And as of yet, I don't know whether it's going to work. It should. I mean, it's been 40 years since I did one, but it's, I think this is how they were made. I can't tell a whole lot from the pictures in the book, but I believe that it's, you know, in my own mind, looking at it and how it's constructed, I think it's going to do what we want it to do. It's got that little lip that's holding on to it. So as I push on this, it's going to push this piece this way and this piece this way. And it shouldn't allow it to come the other way. So it should work. And, you know, to be quite honest with you, I don't know whether the original one, you know, the Yamaha ones had that little lip, but it can't hurt. You know, I just thought, well, I'll put it in there, and if it's in the way, I can just I can cut it back out. But I think it's actually going to be beneficial. So, but see, you can see here now that this is definitely loose. You know, I was just about on top of the and let me get a little more light. You know, right in here. I was just about on top of this aluminum, so we moved that one. What would you call that? Bearing surface or whatever. Move that out a little bit, so it's not going to interfere with that. You know, it really has no purpose other than we're shortening down the 3/4, because these I think are more like just a little over half. Just a little over half, yeah. So 6, you know, not in there very good, but about 634. And of course these are 750. So that's why that's there, is we wanted to have pretty much full clamping force on this area, and we don't want to clamp back here on the aluminum. So that was just a recess. That's what it would be. So that should, and from what I can tell, the rods are loose, and it should not push into the rods because of that lip that I put in there. I'm just certain that should be there. So anyhow, we'll figure it out and try it. But I think on the we'll probably just wait and work it on the other one. This one is a spare, and if I need it, I know it needs bearings too, but it's probably not toast like the other one is as far as the rods. So I think that the rods would be okay going back together without changing them out. But we are going to have to do the bearings. Okay, guys, there you have it. I think it's working on my 40-some years of memory and a picture in a book, and I think it's okay. I think that's what we need, but we won't know until we get ready to separate it. But, and you know, could be we don't even need to go there, but I think we are. Anyhow, I'm gonna get that engine out here pretty soon, and we'll tear into that and just see what we need, then order some parts, and then see about putting it back together. But I think we've got what we need to go ahead and separate the crank, and you know, of course we've already got what we need as far as separating the crank halves and doing all that stuff. So that we can do. This I knew I couldn't do, or may not be able to do it the way it needs to be done. You need, when you're doing something like this, you need to make sure that you're doing it in a non-destructive way. You know, you might be able to just get her done, but getting her done and breaking something is not a good idea. So we're gonna try to get her done the right way. Anyhow, hey, thanks for going along on the ride. See you next video.